Who can read the question of the day for me? Rebecca, go ahead.
Question of the day. How can you use annotation to find deeper meaning in a text?
All right, thank you. So today we're going to be learning about annotation. And annotation is basically like taking notes, but directly on a book or a poem or whatever you're reading. And it's really useful for when you want to go back and look at your ideas one more time. So there are 3 important things to keep in mind when we're annotating: vocab, summaries, and literary features. So for vocab, you can take notes of definitions of new words or words that you know but that are used differently. You can also jot down some summaries to figure out what just happened, and so that when you reread it, you can understand what you were thinking of at that point in time. And then finally, literary features are really important for when you're looking at a poem or a fiction book. So let me give you some examples here: similes and metaphors, rhymes, symbols, and themes. So once we have those 3 things, we can have a conversation with the text using annotations. And so we'll make comments, we'll ask questions, and we'll make connections, okay? So to remember those things, I have a little annotation song that I'm going to teach you, and it goes through to the tune of head, shoulders, knees, and toes, okay? So you'll repeat after me. Comments, questions, and connections.
Comments, questions, and connections.
Vocab, summaries, literary features.
Vocab, summaries, literary features.
Comments, questions, and connections.
Comments, questions, and connections.
Fantastic. Okay, so now that we've got that down, we're ready to start annotating something together. So I asked you to read this poem before coming to class. Does anyone want to read it out loud? Go ahead, Stuart.
The Rose Family by Robert Frost. The rose is a rose and was always a rose, but the theory now goes that the apple's a rose, and the pear is, and so's the plum, I suppose. The deer only knows what will next prove a rose. You, of course, are a rose, but we're always a rose.
Fantastic. Thank you, Stuart. So one thing I did here is that I wrote down themes on the side. So this is so we can keep track of the main ideas of the poem as we're reading it and jotting down some notes. When we first read this poem, what are some things you notice that jump out immediately? Those can be things like repeated words or rhymes. Yeah, Rebecca.
There seems to be a rhyme scheme. Each line appears to rhyme with rose, or the last word of each line.
Perfect. So each line rhymes with rose, and rose is repeated many times in this poem. So maybe we want to look up the word rose and see if it has a deeper meaning than just the flower. So if we do that, we'll find out that a rose can also mean a member of the rose family of plants. So this poem is interesting because it has a literal meaning and a deeper meaning. But this definition can help us figure out what the literal meaning of this poem is. Does anyone want to take a guess at what that would be? Yeah, Rebecca.
Are all of those things also member of the same family scientifically as roses?
Yeah, exactly. So they're all part of the scientific rose family. So then we can take note of that theme, which is like nature or science, and we can keep that in our brains for later. But then there's also a deeper meaning to this poem, just like all Robert Frost poems. So we can look at the last 2 lines for that. We might ask ourselves, who is this you that the speaker is talking to? It seems to be that the speaker is talking to a rose, but it could also be a person. So this line, you are a rose, that would be a literary feature, and that would be a metaphor comparing a person to a rose. And what could that mean, comparing somebody to a rose? What does a rose symbolize? Yeah, Elijah.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is beauty and love. And in the context of this story, it seems like the original thing, the real deal.
Yeah, so let's say a rose symbolizes beauty. So saying that you are a rose means that you are beautiful. So the deeper meaning of this poem then becomes, people always change their minds about what is beautiful. So today it could be an apple, tomorrow it could be a plum. But the speaker is telling this you that they are a rose and they were always a rose. So they are beautiful and they were always beautiful, no matter what everyone else thinks at that time.